Have you ever wondered why when you start growing as a person, the people around you start acting distant or even hostile? It's a confusing and painful experience, especially when these are really people you love most, friends, family, or even your closest partners. But what if I told you that this reaction is actually tied to something much deeper in human psychology? What if it wasn't about you at all, but about something inside them that they aren't ready to face? By the end of this, you'll have a new understanding of why people sometimes reject your growth. And you'll discover a profound psychological truth that explains this strange pattern. The answer comes from one of the most influential psychologists in history, Carl Jung. He spent his life studying the human mind and our behavior. And he uncovered something about human nature that could completely change how you see every relationship in your life. Jung's ideas, particularly about the shadow and projection, help explain why people resist your growth, even if they don't realize it themselves. It's not about you being wrong for changing. It's about them struggling with something inside of themselves. Jung's theory helps you understand that when we start changing for the better, when we start growing, we become mirrors to others. These people might not like what they see in that mirror, and that's when their resistance begins. It can feel like they are rejecting you for who you are now, but what's actually happening is much deeper than that. Dawn, this isn't just a psychological idea. It's also a journey of self-discovery that affects the people around us in ways we can't always control. And it all starts with something Jung called the shadow. Separate of ourselves, we often hide even from ourselves. This section keeps tone approachable, engaging and easy to understand while introducing psychologicals that will be explored later in script. It sets up the mystery and curiosity about why personal growth sometimes leads to conflict with others. Jung believed that every person carries what he called a shadow. This isn't some dark mystical thing. It's simply parts of ourselves that we try to ignore or hide because they're uncomfortable or we've been taught to reject them. These parts could be feelings, traits, or even desires that don't fit with the image we want others to see. For example, maybe you were taught that anger is bad, so you push it down and pretend it's not there. Or maybe you've always tried to be the perfect person, so you hide your flaws. The problem is when we ignore ordinarily these parts of ourselves, they don't go away. Instead, they become the hidden forces that shape our thoughts, actions, and even the way we interact with others without us even realizing it. The more we refuse to deal with them, the stronger they get. And eventually, they start to leak out in ways we can't control. But here's the twist. When you begin to heal, when you start growing and accepting those rejected parts of yourself, you become a mirror to those around you. You show them what they've been avoiding in themselves. Your growth forces them to face their own shadows, the parts of themselves they don't want to confront. And that's when things get uncomfortable for them. Here's where it gets tricky. As you start growing and changing, people who are still avoiding their own shadows can't help but project their own feelings of fear, insecurity, or jealousy onto you. This is a psychological process Jung called projection. Essentially, they start seeing their own flaws or unhealed wounds in you. And instead of taking responsibility for it, they blame you. This is why your success, your confidence, or even your boundaries might trigger negative reactions from those around you. They're not angry at you for who you are. They're angry at you for being a mirror of everything they refuse to deal with in themselves. You might feel like they hate you for what you've become, but in reality, they're just projecting their own unresolved issues onto you. It's not easy to grow. And it's especially not easy for the people closest to you. You might find that as you become more confident, more assertive, or more independent, the people around you start to act like you've done something wrong. They might even accuse you of changing or becoming someone else. But here's the thing, they're not rejecting the real you. They're rejecting the version of you that no longer fits into the role they've created for you. Your growth becomes a threat to the identities they've built around you. If you stopping the person they expected, it forces them to question their own identity and their place in their relationship with you. This is why it often feels like the people who were once closest to you now seem distant or even hostile. This section builds on Jung's concept of the shadow and projection, explaining how personal growth triggers discomfort in others. It makes the complex ideas accessible and shows how our internal changes affect external relationships. One of Jung's most important ideas was the concept of individuation, the process of becoming your true authentic self. It's the journey of understanding who you really are separate from the roles, labels, and expectations that society or the people around you have placed on you. This is an ongoing process of self-discovery and growth where you integrate all parts of yourself, even the parts you may have rejected or hidden. Individuation is essential for psychological health. It's what helps us step into our full potential and live a life that feels true to who we are, but is also deeply threatening to the people around us, especially those who are still trapped in old patterns of thinking or who haven't ever gone through their own process of self-discovery. When you start becoming who you truly are, it forces others to face their own fears about who they are, or more often, who they're not. The more you shed the mask of what others wanted you to be, the more uncomfortable it makes those who are still clinging to their own personas. They don't hate their value. They hate the fact that your growth forces them to question their own stagnation. It makes them face the uncomfortable truth that they've never fully embraced who they are. Jung also believed that we are all connected. A collective unconscious shared patterns, beliefs, and ideas that form the foundation of society. This collective unconscious helps keep things running smoothly in our communities and families. It's like an invisible thread that holds everything together and tells us how we're supposed to behave. But there's a catch. The collective unconscious thrives on conformity. It depends on people staying in their assigned roles and following the same behaviors and patterns that have been passed down for generations. When you break free from these societal patterns, when you refuse to participate in unhealthy family dynamics, stop enabling toxic behaviors, or stop living according to everyone else's expectations, you run it just changing yourself. You're shaking the very foundation of the system that holds everything together. And when that happens, people will push back. They'll try to pull you back in line, often in ways that feel harsh or unexplainable. This is why when you start stepping out of the mold, it can feel like everyone turns against you all at once. People didn't just resist your change, they resist the threat it poses to the entire system they've been a part of. You run it just breaking your personal chains. You're challenging the beliefs and behaviors that have been accepted for years. It's a big shift. And that shift makes others feel incredibly uncomfortable. This section explains Jung's concept of individuation and how it can challenge not just personal relationships, but larger societal expectations. It's clear and straightforward, showing how personal growth doesn't just affect the individual, but also disrupts the world around them, especially when those around you are resistant to change.